gift giving and all that shit. And then it went to like a very abusive, like rape situation for me as like a 10-year-old kid.
Right.
Like you've used your brain as a defense so nobody ever like fucks with you.
Right.
Because it went from like a confrontation to something very serious very fast, to where everyone was like, where the hell did this come from?
Right.
Like, you know, because I'm always pretty even keeled, like until I have to be like, there's a special place in hell for people that do that shit to kids.
You're watching the only platform on this planet where we take real stories from real people and we pair them with movies. And today we have Joe Reed on the channel. The movie he said best relates to his life is Sleepers. Now, for the world that don't know, how does this movie relate to your life?
Oh man, it's crazy because like I've thought about that, you know, because when you messaged me about that,
Right.
it's crazy because I love so many movies, but some of them I just love because I love them. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then it was a friend of mine that he had just watched The Count of Monte Cristo and said like, oh, that's kind of like your story, man. Like, you know, you were down for, life knocked you down, you came back up, and you know, and I was like, yeah, to a degree, I guess that would do. But then it wasn't until I was on the phone with my brother, and you know, he was the one like years ago, that movie came out in 96.
Right.
It's the year I graduated high school. I think it was a year later, my brother, you know, had watched that movie and he said, man, you need to watch this movie. And obviously you've watched the movie. Like that movie's got had a lot of fucked up scenes in it, you know what I mean? But you know, it you know, I wouldn't say that it like everything in there. Obviously I didn't grow up in New York in the boroughs or anything, but there was some shit going on at home. You know, my dad drank a lot. My mom was, you know, a lot younger than my dad, and she was doing her thing. And you know, I don't even remember most of that because I stayed with my grandma a lot of the times because things were weird at home. But you know, it wasn't really until my dad passed when I was 9, and then my stepdad came into the picture. And my stepdad, you know, he's like the complete opposite of my dad. My dad was actually a cop, even though he was questionably a good guy or not, you know. Then my mom decided she was going to go the complete other side of the spectrum and marry my stepdad. And, you know, he cooked meth, you know, so he was a cook. And, you know, we go from living like basically suburban, I'd say like, you know, lower middle class suburban neighborhood to, you know, San Bernardino. And, you know, where like I remember like I got a lesson pretty young on what like mad dogging was, you know, like, you know, it's like, but the shit really hit the fan. It wasn't really you know, my stepdad was a tweaker. It wasn't really that like he had already like put his hands on us, my mom. It was really when, you know, we got into some trouble. Then we got sent to Louisiana to stay with some of his family. And then like the abuse started, you know, where it's like, you know, I felt like, you know, looking back, you don't really, I mean, there was really not a lot of like media talking about this back then. But, you know, I could definitely tell that like that family member, being the piece of shit that he was like grooming us, you know.
Right.
And then gift giving and all that shit. And then it went to like a very abusive like rape situation for me as like a 10-year-old kid.
Right.
You know, so I was old enough to know what was going on, but not old enough to really understand why it was going on.
Right.
You know, so, and then, you know, if I didn't know what was going on with my brother either. You know, because, you know, we didn't figure that out until we were adults, and I had to deal with this shit like because of something else I'll hopefully get into. But, you know, it was we were out there for, I don't know, 2 or 3 months, and, you know, I'd say about a month in, it really kind of started where it was sexual abuse that was followed up with like, you know, I'll beat the shit out of you kind of thing if you say anything. And it was and then it was back to like, well, look at like, you know, let's go fishing, and, you know, here's like this watch that you want, and, you know, stuff like that. So then we come home after all this. I never brought any of it up. My brother never brought any of it up. I never even really questioned on whether it was even happening to my brother back then because, you know, I didn't see it happening. And then, you know, because it was such a convenient thing to do, we end up getting sent back like the following summer. Because at that point, like looking back, I could tell like my life changed at that point because I became very like offensive towards things. I was more the aggressor in fights than the one on the defense.
Right.
And I remember it was a noticeable change like with my friends. what I was doing. I was very curious about like drinking all of a sudden, smoking cigarettes. Like
Right.
I don't think I was dabbling like with weed or anything like that at the time. But then the following summer, it might not even have been summer because we got pulled out of school at one point for a while. We got sent back. And then obviously that shit started up like right away. Not well, I shouldn't say right away, but it started again kind of like the grooming phase
Right.
and you know, and then it started, but this time it was more of a violent start to this shit. And at this point I'm like 11 years old and you know, it's like what the fuck, you know. And so you know where you know so that obviously is very relatable to me from the movie, you know. I mean, because it was like, you know, you're going to be, you know, you're sent someplace to like, you know, help you, but it ultimately ends up hurting you and shaping the rest of your life. And then so it happened twice, and then I kind of wrote it off because, you know, I knew I wasn't, you know, gay, and I knew that like I wasn't, you know, I wasn't like, you know, it didn't really I didn't think at the time it affected me at all.
Right.
And then, you know, when I come home, I noticed like I became like almost instantly like a troublemaker. You know, I started actively smoking weed at, you know, about 12. I started getting into, which now is like become like more of a positive. I started getting into like tagging, and I ended up going to, you know, juvenile hall, you know, and even going to juvenile hall, oddly enough, even though that's where that happens in the movie at, I just became more of like a fucking like ringleader for mischief, you know what I mean, when I went there. Because it was like, you know, growing up already like as a white kid in San Bernardino, you're kind of like, well, I better fucking learn how to fight, you know what I mean? And so my brother got it really into sports. You know, he ended up becoming like a star fucking quarterback. He's you know, he fucking got along with everybody. And then like I was more popular because I got into, you know, selling weed young age and like doing graffiti and breaking into schools and doing shit like that. So then you know, we go to juvenile hall. I spent a summer in juvenile hall, and this place that was like, you know, places like that, they made documentaries for, you know, for later on, because it was more of like a fucking boot camp for kids. And that's when shit like really started going off the rails. I mean, when I say going off the rails, like I gotta be careful saying that, because I didn't, you know, we know Carlos, and like Carlos, you know, I mean, you know, maybe the grace of God or just luck, I didn't get locked up at a young age for, you know, most of my life either. So I got lucky a lot of times, or maybe I outsmarted the system a little bit, but it definitely wasn't because I wasn't out there causing shit. You know. So I again, like, you know, as an adult, you kind of reflect on the decisions you make. I became almost like a leader in my own right. You know, everything that I got involved with, I was pretty cocky about being like the smartest and being the one that kind of ran the show, like. And so I never got involved in gangs because, you know, I joked that graffiti kind of saved my life, but I like jumped into graffiti. I became pretty good at it at a young age. I started a crew that's still around. That, you know, I started, you know, I was, you know, selling weed, doing a lot of bad shit, you know, womanizing. I lost my virginity at 13, and I still think that has a lot to do with what happened to me in Louisiana, because like it was almost me subconsciously proving to myself that I like girls, you know what I mean? That it was like, and so I had no structure at home. I lived with a meth cook, so I could come home whenever I wanted to. I could do whatever I wanted to. I'd get drunk, smoke weed, you know, with my mom. My mom had her own substance issues at this point, and you know, I moved out when I was 15. I had my son when I was 17. And I'd say my son is ultimately what saved my life, because, you know, he's 28 now. He'll be, you know, 29 soon. And I wanted to make sure that he didn't have the life I had. So like I worked extra hard to make sure he didn't have that life. But another part of that movie that kind of relates to me is that I'm living in Vegas in 2016, 17 maybe, and my brother calls me, and he's like, "Hey man, like, cuz we had both been kind of looking for this dude, like to find where he was at now, and he kind of disappeared, probably for good reason." And then, you know, the era of Facebook, you know, people, you know, easier found sometimes. And he had pretty distinctive last name, so, you know, it wasn't hard to find, you know, him once he like surfaced. And so my brother finds this you know, now to kind of give context to what my brother's life looked like is my brother even to this day looks like a competitive bodybuilder. Like he's a big guy. He's
Right.
gotten to the fire department. He's not afraid, even as a firefighter, he's not afraid to like knock somebody out. Like he's just that guy. Like he's just like, you know, if he wouldn't have gotten into like firefighting, he'd probably fucking went to prison. Like one of those guys. So to kind of go back to when we found this guy on Facebook, I can say this now because that guy's no longer around, not because of us, because of the system, but you know, we had every intention in the world because we both had means to go out there and like basically Kevin Bacon this guy. Like this, there was like no doubt in our mind. Like it was like, you know, let's meet, let's talk about this, let's plan this out right, let's make sure that this guy, because the even sicker part of the whole thing is that at this point this guy had kids. And it's like, who the hell knows, you know what I mean, you know, but you know, I don't know how you know you feel about God or divine intervention. Like in the middle of this planning, I mean, this happened years after we you know, we were assaulted by this guy. This guy was actually arrested because he was part of a ring of like pedophiles, basically. And so he went into the system, and then somebody got him in there. And so it was like, you know, they wouldn't release even to my brother like who that guy was, because that would have been the dude that like I would have put like a small fortune on his books for, you know what I mean? Like, because like, I would have been like, you know what, this is, you know, because as soon as we found out that he got locked up, like I have friends obviously that you know have been down. I was immediately like calling on everybody, like you know what I mean, like how do I figure out where this guy's at, like you know who he is, like you know what I mean, who do you know inside, because I was like, this guy's not getting away from this shit just because he got locked up, because who knows, you know, with how smooth this guy was, we weren't his first, and we definitely probably were not his last if he went on and had like kids and moved to like Michigan, and so you know, so very well could have ended up being like a situation where, you know what I mean, I would have been like stuck in a situation like those guys were on the movie, you know? And then like, you know, later on, you know, my brother is living his life, I'm living my life, and like we just don't really talk about it anymore. The other day I was actually surprised that, you know, he got you know, I have a conversation with him maybe once a month, you know, now, like, you know, I don't see him as much as I used to. And like when I just randomly just mentioned this podcast. I said, yeah, I'm doing this podcast and still can't figure out what I'm doing. And he was like, man, you need to do sleepers. And I was like, fuck, man. He's like, I think we're both ready to like talk a little bit more about this. Like, you know, and my wife knows the situation, and I don't want pity. I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me. I don't want to do anything. It's just, I don't really, I mean, if anything, it shaped me to be a success in what I do now, little over aggressively, you know, like successful, but it's also probably hindered me because like, you know, it's hard for me to trust people. And I still to this day, I mean, I'm 47, and like if I'm like in an elevator with a certain Caucasian guy wearing like a certain pair of shoes and shorts and shit like that, like I get triggered to where like I want to like fight this person. You know what I mean? It's happened multiple times. I've been in multiple settings where I've had to leave bars, a cigar bar one time. I've had to leave places because somebody in that room reminds me of the guy that did that to me. Like I just can't be there. I don't make it a thing, but I'm like, I got to call it an early night or I got to leave. But, you know, I think that, you know, there's a special place in hell for people that do that shit to kids and women, or just people that are more vulnerable. And, that's not going to change, you know, and like I made it very clear that, you know, and unapologetically that I'm not buying into this fucking agenda, you know what I mean, that, you know, there's some, I don't even know what it's called, some agenda or some fucking people trying to push the idea that, you know, there could be an actual attraction to underage. Have you heard of that?
Nah.
Yeah, there's like this group of people that are trying to, they're like,
I think it's a gene in you
there's a
that
gene
makes you attracted to younger
people, like younger people. And you know, I believe, you know, that, you know, those people deserve, you know, probably more than I can even really talk about that would be aired on this, you know. And it's just because it's not, I mean, we came out, for years I thought I came out of the other end of it like unscathed, but I obviously didn't, you know. I got my own issues because of it, and I feel that, you know, we were toughened up. Life was already toughening us up to kind of prepare for this. I can only imagine when people are more in a vulnerable place, and you know, I mean, they might be coddled or spoiled, and it causes, you know, I've met people through this journey, not even trying to, that have substance issues and suicidal thoughts and like issues with their own families, and because of stuff like this, you
Right,
know.
right.
And so I mean, I guess that would answer, that's like the long short answer on how that movie would best relate to me.
Yeah, yeah, that's heavy. I'm so much going through my mind as I'm listening to it. You know, even what Viktor Frankl said once upon a time when he said abnormal reactions to abnormal situations is really normal behavior.
Mm-hmm.
To the rest of the so-called normal world, it looks chaotic, but your world internally is different. You know, and it's in relation to the circumstance. So every time you was around the men who wore or looked like the guy who did that, you only knew one thing: to reclaim what was taken from you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not to just do it for the sake of being evil, but consciously try to take back your power, your safety, and your dignity that this monster took from you. So man, it's deep. And it sounds like you went through every phase that they talk about, as far as like revisiting it, then the phase of like silencing it, and now just facing it head on.
Yeah, it's a problem. I'm glad that I'm not a psychiatrist or a therapist, but you know, there's people that internalize stuff like that happen to them, and then they become the predator.
Right.
And it's like that. I'm never gonna understand that, because if anything, like, I was overly protective. I mean, I didn't coddle my son. Like, he grew up and he earned stuff. Like, he lived a pretty decent life. But I did teach him the value of money. I taught him the respect, to respect people, to respect money, to, you know what I mean, that, like, you know, if a guy's got $5 to his name or $5 million to them, they're the same fucking person. Like, you know what I mean? I taught him that, and he probably is even better at it than me these days. Like, you know, he
Right.
really sees people for, you know, who they are, not where they came from, you know. And then we're adopting which was completely like out of the blue. Like, my sister-in-law, she has her own struggles, and she had a baby in February, and we're adopting the baby. I'm at 47. My wife's younger than me, so it makes better sense for her to be adopting a baby. But you know, we're adopting a baby, and you know, it's like that little girl. Obviously, being a daughter, you know, a girl's dad is going to be different than
Right.
being a
Right.
boy's dad.
Right.
So I'm going to have to prepare myself a little bit differently for her.
Right.
And I do have two step kids, you know, and like and their dad is very active in their life, so I'm not like the authority figure there, unless they need to pick up the house or something. So it's going to be interesting to see like how, you know, I mean, I am as a father, and how protective, because to say that if something like that would to happen to my son, and I would have found out, like, I wouldn't probably be doing this interview.
Right.
I'd be doing it in fucking prison. Like,
Right.
you
Right.
know,
Right.
and I can only imagine the conversation, if I had a conversation and found out that something like that's going to happen to like my now daughter. Like, it's
Mm.
fucking crazy, because now it's like, it's not just me that they got to worry about, you know what I mean? But like, you know, there's a bunch of people that I either am partners with or that I work with, that all consider now her, even her at 6 months old, like their uncles and aunts, you know what I mean? And this would be like, this person would literally have to, you know, off themselves or like move somewhere untouchable, you know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
Like,
Right.
because that shit is just it's a sickness. It's going to be interesting, you know, seeing how, you know, how it is for the next, you know, 18 plus years raising a girl, you
Right.
know what I mean? And but because at the same time, I have a lot more means than I had when I had my son, but I can't raise like some spoiled kid either, you know what I mean?
Right.
So
Right.
it's going
Right.
to be like this balance of like protecting her from the world, but also she needs to get some lumps on the head along the way too, you know.
Right. Right.
And then there's the challenge of like, I don't want her to not have a relationship, you know, if her mom pulls out of it. I don't want her to not have a relationship with her mom, you know. So a lot of things, man, you juggle as an adult, and this whole way of me thinking, like, all probably stems back to that. I mean, I don't know what my life would have looked like if that wouldn't have happened, or my dad would have lived, or my mom would have decided to marry like somebody else, and who the hell knows? I mean, but you know, we play the cards that we're dealt. You know,
Right.
it's like I don't mind my life. It's fucking hard still. I mean, you know, running businesses and dealing with employees and personalities is hard enough, and then you got to deal with you know how people judge you just out in the world. Like I'm very unapologetically myself. You know, like I'm fucking heavily tattooed. I talk shit. Like, you know, I mean, I still paint graffiti. I'm 47. I'm
Right.
open about that, you know, and
Right.
so, and it's like, you know, you kind of love me or hate me, and it doesn't really matter. And who knows if that wouldn't have shaped my life, I might have been more like conformative to like working a job
Right.
or
Right.
being in a bank or something. But
Right.
like that shit would have drew. I finished. I got an education, and I actually tried going into corporate America,
Mm.
and not corporate. Well, you sort of. I went to school to become an optometrist, and I was there for like 3 hours and like regretting the school I went to. I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, I thank God I was laid off because I had gotten sick
Right.
and I had to get into the cannabis industry. Like, you know,
Right.
well, I didn't have to, but that was like low hanging fruit for me. And then because if I would have had to stay there, I would have eventually left anyways. So, like, it just wasn't me. So, who knows, man? This probably all ties in somehow to the shit that happened in Louisiana. My whole life, every
Yeah.
decision I make probably ties into that.
For sure, for sure. Because it's when you talk about always wanting to be in control and stuff, like I believe that is it contributes, even if it ain't the primary thing, but it definitely contributes because they gotta. I remember reading another book that talks about it's the title of it was "The Body Keeps the Score." You know, and it talks about how your relationships shape you for better or for worse. Because even our enemies is in relation to us.
Yeah.
You know, it talks about how trauma can physically really reshape the brain and the body. The trauma,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and your situation as well as in the movie, the Boys from Hell's Kitchen. It's like when society can't protect you or doesn't protect you, when the justice system doesn't protect you, the survival is going to take justice to his own hands. That's only natural because it's psychologically you're trying to reclaim what's taken from you. You need your power back. So you're going to create your own form of justice and restore balance.
Yeah. No,
like you
you're right.
so I believe what you just said, yeah, it did contribute to that. What we all go through in life, it contributes to how we carry out our life from that point on. Some for better, some for worse. You started building businesses as your to bring back your power. You
Yeah.
know, but at some point you said that your journey turned out how the kids did when they got older as far as the drugs and the alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I never got into drugs.
Okay.
I seen enough addicts growing up to at least I knew that that wasn't gonna be me. But I became like a heavy drinker, and it
Okay,
just
yeah.
starts casually. You're a teenager and you're just drinking beer with friends, and you're taking shots, and girls think that shit's cool. And then I it really escalated in 2000. I more than likely would have been considered an alcoholic up to that point, but I moved to Vegas in 2015 to partner with the dispensary in Vegas. And I joked, it was a joke that I said that you know, within 6 months of living in Vegas, I'll become a degenerate because I don't gamble. So it's kind of a weird statement that I even made, but everybody likes to hold that over my head now. I moved out there. I was in a very like toxic relationship, and drinking just became very like heavy in my life to where it became, you know, I could afford to take a car service or an Uber everywhere, so I never got a DUI, luckily. And I should have, because I did drive a lot, like drunk, and and I feel like everybody just kind of gave me a hall pass for my behavior because I was either picking up the check, or the dispensary that I was partners with would host like a, you know, like a club night. So it was like very easy for me to just become kind of like a shithead when I was out there. And then when I quit drinking, you know, it had really escalated. And I mean, this is more of that control freak shit that I have a problem with. I was leaving like a show one night, a concert, and the valet driver at the MGM wouldn't give me my keys to my car. And so I got pissed, and like he pushed me, and then I punched him. And it should have put me in jail. Instead, I got kind of tackled, and then I stormed off, and then I woke up the next day at home, and I still don't remember what the fuck happened, other than like I spent a bunch of money at Top Golf.
Right.
I don't even remember being at Top Golf. I had to go
Okay.
back there for them to check the cameras to make sure I was there, and the girl
Right.
was like, "We put you in an Uber last night home." Like, I was like, "Fuck, I don't even remember that." So
Right.
that was like a wake up call that I need to get my shit together.
Right.
So within like month after that happening, like I broke up with my ex. I paid her to get out basically because she
Right.
wasn't leaving, and then I started like turning my life around, and I started helping people in recovery because like I didn't realize what type of influence I had over like employees and people around me until they started reaching out for help. Like, dude, is this thing helping you? Like, this whole AA thing. And I wasn't really into AA. I'm still not, but I got sober. I started going to meetings, and then I started like a recovery organization called Raised by Wolves myself,
Right.
and started helping people in recovery like more alternatively, not through the big book. I believe that being in those chairs and like being in meetings saved people's lives. I'm not knocking what they've done in the last 100 years,
Right.
but we offer a different alternative that incorporates like more of like, I mean, it's very controversial because we've helped a lot of people get off of even like opiates with like cannabis. And that, with I was just on a phone call on the way here with a guy that is asking for his ex-wife, who's a heroin addict, asking if the Rick Simpson oil helps, like really does help. And I was like, yeah, you knock yourself out with Rick Simpson oil, you'll go through the kick like a lot.
Is that your oil?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Well, Rick Simpson's somebody that developed it, but it's a very very high THC amount oil.
Okay.
Like it's so high that most people that smoke weed, like they don't even fuck with like RSO,
Oh,
because
okay.
it's not even, you're not even really getting high on RSO. You're just putting yourself asleep. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's
Yeah.
because it's like extracting every bit of THC out of the plant,
Mm.
and then the rest of it's just like, so I had a friend of mine when early on in recovery, like I met a guy, Ian, who's a partner of mine, Ian Lovelace. He's a musician slash partner of mine, and he said that he kicked. I mean, he was a bad heroin addict. Like, he's got like track marks on his neck still, and he tattooed over them, but it's crazy, they're still pretty prominent, and he said that he went through the heroin kick with THC,
Mm.
with Rick Simpson oil. And I did a little homework, and it's a thing. And so we were making RSO oil. We still make RSO oil, or teach people how to make it, and give it to them. And it'll help you through the opiate withdrawal process.
Mm.
And it's crazy. But if you start talking about that in the normal like recovery community, it's
Right.
like it's a like, no, like,
Mm.
that's not a thing, because not everybody can go into an assisted a facility that's going to assist you in like, through the withdrawal process. Because even if you go into a traditional rehab or sober living, like you're gonna write it out. And that's how usually most people, because these places have an open door policy, you could just leave. That's
Mm.
how there's only 2% of people that are actually successfully getting over their withdrawals and not leaving. Because when it gets bad, that's the only voice you hear is like, go score dope, like that's
Right. Right.
it.
Right.
And so if we have, I believe, I don't have like a percentage dialed in, but I believe we have a very high success rate with Raised by Wolves getting people clean. I
Right.
mean, because now they're paying it forward. Like, just our WhatsApp group alone has like 400 people in it.
Mm.
And I don't know, I'd be naive to say that all of them are actively in recovery still, but even if half of them are, that's a huge success rate.
Right. For sure.
We also incorporate kava, which I'm not sure if you guys know what kava is, but kava is it's from the Polynesian islands. It's been used for thousands of years, ceremonial
Okay.
wise. We have the only kava bar in Vegas, and we just signed lease on our location in Palm Springs, and Redlands is next. And then after this meeting, I'm actually driving to Reseda to look at a place in Reseda. And
Mm.
so the kava bar is like, you walk in, you think you're in a bar, but there's no alcohol there. But it has
Right.
CBD, it has kava drinks, it has like different things, and we host Raised by Wolves meetings there.
Okay.
And so the idea is just to like to build that community up, to really help really do good in the community. And
Mm.
then I've partnered recently with, he'd kill me if I mention his name, because we use because I'm in the cannabis industry still, and
Okay.
because we use cannabis in treatment. Like, there's a celebrity skateboarder that is a partner of mine in this project, but he would lose a lot of his funding for what he's
Okay.
doing, like if I was
Right.
to name him as a partner.
Okay.
So we
Yeah.
talk all the time, but it's very like, you know, like, fuck, man, I don't want to lose. I don't want you losing, because he has recovery homes. I don't want him losing millions of dollars in funding because his
Right.
partner's in cannabis. So
Right.
it's
Right.
like, so
Right.
I'm okay with that. But, you know, he's like, man, I can't wait till we're substantially like taking care of ourselves, you know, because then like I'm gonna blow the lid on the real recovery, you know,
Right.
side of things, which is great, you know, because that's, you know, somebody from the Raiders organization came into the to my place a couple weeks ago talking about Raised by Wolves. Like, you know what? Like, I want you to come talk to some of these guys that are either retired players or with the organization that has issues, you know.
So
And
you
so,
helping people with recovery, but how far along are you in yours, like mentally, from that traumatic experience?
well, the shit that happened in Louisiana, I'll probably be dealing with the rest of my life, you know. But as far as like the booze and shit, I don't even think about that anymore. Like, you know, putting that shit in my body is just, that's a wrap. Like, I'm not doing that. Like, I feel better at 47 than for sure I did at 37.
Hmm.
You know, I'd say that I don't know very many people at 47 that are as like balls to the wall like I am. Like, I'm up early, I go to sleep late, sometimes too late, where I have to take a recovery day, and I'm like nonstop. Like, I mean, even the little we've talked, you probably even noticed, like, I'm in Vegas half the time.
Right.
You know, I have a place in Vegas, so I'm in Vegas half the time because I have the Kava bar, I have a sushi place out there. I have business in LA, Orange County, San Diego, Palm Springs, Redlands. Like, I'm all over the place.
Right.
And you know, and it's because I actually care about what's in my going in my body, you know, now. So recovery wise, there's no, I wouldn't, I'd say, other than like I was like an idiot. Like, I started vaping again recently, and then I quit it
Okay.
because somebody said, this is all I need sometimes. Somebody said, like, oh, you say you're not an addict, bro, but you can't put away those vapes. I literally threw the vape out of the fucking window that day,
Right.
and then I just like went through like mood swings for like a
Right.
week. You know what I mean? So, and it's because I hate when people tell me shit like
Yeah.
that. That's just that ego issue of mine. Or it's almost like, you know, and I kind of hope he listens to this, but there's a guy from Colorado that had a Cabo bar, and he was on Brad's, you know, Brad Lee is.
No.
Yeah, so Bradley is it's how I met Carlos, actually.
Okay.
Bradley has a really big podcast. Like,
Oh,
yeah, it's called
okay.
Dropping Bombs, and I don't mind shouting him out because I'll probably send this to him.
Right.
So he had a guy on there that owned the Cabo bar, but he's also an MMA fighter, and he mentioned some shit that pissed me off. And he didn't even mean to do it. Like, the guy's not, like, we're friends, but he mentioned some shit, and he was like, yeah, I have my Cabo bar in Colorado. And Brad had actually said, hey, have you been to the one here? Like, because he knows me. He goes, yeah, but it's not a very good Cabo bar. And so I dropped like 80 grand renovating that place over one fucking comment.
Damn.
You know what I mean? No, he actually didn't say it's not that good. He's like, it's all right. It's just not as good as mine.
Right.
So I was like, really? This fucking guy, instead of like giving me my flowers, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, this guy's going to like say shit like that. So my wife heard that when I heard it. Like, well, she didn't hear it right when I heard it, but I told her about it. She heard it and she said, oh, fuck. Because she already knew. Like, I was like, oh. So I like took my media team. I said, we're going to market the shit out of this product. We're going to do more business. Like, I remodeled the front of the place, the inside of the place. I upped the menu. I hired a guy for a new menu. And then now I'm going to go to Colorado. This is pretty fucked up for me. So this is how I act. I'm going to go to Colorado.
So did it come from that
Oh, 100
past
fucking
situation?
percent. No.
Your need to dominate.
Probably because that guy comes to Vegas for MMA fights. Next time he comes in here, and I know because he's a good dude. I don't have any issues with him. He just made a statement that pushed me, like, kind of motivated me, obviously. When he comes in, because he fights, he's still a fighter, and he comes in and then he says, like, man, I really like what you did, because the place is fucking phenomenal. Like, it's just a really nice place. When he comes in there and says he did it, I'm going to say, you know why I did this? And I'm going to say it's because of that stupid fucking comment that you made. And I know that's going to, like, rattle him a little bit. Like, what do you mean? He might even, like, take it as, like, terms of endearment, you know what I mean? Like, at least I pushed you, but that just pissed me off. So the whole process of me doing this, like, this whole remodel and rebranding, it's obviously done well for sales and everything, because I might have been like calling it in a little bit because we were the only place out there. The whole process, I've been sending Brad messages. I don't think he reads half of them, but he read a few of them. Be like, oh yeah, but he knows. Like, I think that's when game recognizes game, because he's very successful in his own right. So he's probably like, fuck, man. It's like, you know what I mean? But that's what I need. And it's almost like the ego, man. It's a problem that probably stems from when I was a kid, and that shit happening to me, because like I tried to tackle the Los Angeles cannabis market multiple times. and it was just like a fucking curse. Like my car would break down to a meeting, or this fucking license would get messed up. Something happened, and then so I found a place in Los Angeles in the fashion district, and everyone, my whole team's kind of like, do we really need to be in LA? Because we started in the Inland Empire. We're kind of all over the place now. It's kind of hard to not see us on Weed Maps. We're kind of all over the place, and if it's not under our brand, it's because we've helped somebody that works with us start their own. You know, it's like we're all over the place. We're like I can say this because it's a fact. Like we're Weed Maps' biggest account, like in the country. And so I go into LA and I buy this business, and I'm having struggles with it, and my ego just won't let it go. So I just said screw it. So I just kind of went all in and like just threw money, resources, everything at it. And now, like, you know, whether I keep it, not keep it, depends on what I do with it. It's like now it's running, and you know the team is there, and like, but I could have just as easily bowed out and just been like, maybe LA is not our market. But instead, like, I just went full ham in LA, you know. Or like even the shop, you know, I won't drag the cannabis conversation out too much. The shop in Palm Springs that we just bought, you know, we had delivery out there, we had some stuff going on. They're like, man, Palm Springs is a tough market. And it's like, watch what we do. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, because like it's almost like I run towards the issues. But that was like growing up, you know, in San Bernardino, it's like some fucking ego issue that I had, again, probably stemming back to the trauma. It's like people would be like, man, like that dude's bully wasn't really the word used back then, you know what I mean? But like, that dude's like a prick. I would almost like pick a fight with them, not like walk up to him, punch him in the face, but I'd almost be like, yeah, fuck this guy. Like, you know what I mean? What makes this dude so fucking tough? You know what I mean? So my brother and I were like those two asshole white kids that like, they were like, hey man, watch this. Like, hey Joe, like go punch that fucker in the face. And I'd go punch him in the face. Like that was like junior high level, you know what I mean? In high school is not so much, but then I wrestled, and I was a really good fucking wrestler, and I smoked cigarettes back then and drank. I don't even know what I would have done with wrestling if I didn't do that. Like even my coach would be like, dude, if you actually got your shit together, you go to state. And I'd be like, you know, because I was wrestling out of anger. You know what I mean? It was my excuse to like beat the shit out of somebody without beating them up. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You know, but
so what do you think is the overall lesson in the movie that you carry with you in the real world?
That's scary because I don't even. Well, I guess there is a lesson. When you dig a little bit deeper into the mechanics of the movie, it's that true friendships last a lifetime, you know, because half of them were going down one path, the other half going the other path. And I have friends to this day the same way. I have a friend that's a cop. I don't talk to him as much as I used to. My brother's a firefighter. I mean, you know, I sell weed for a living primarily, you know. But also, I think the lesson is that you know, what happens in your past doesn't have to define your future. I mean, it will define parts of your future, but you can come out of it. I mean, you know, I live in a beautiful home. I have a place in Vegas. My wife drives a beautiful car. We're adopting a baby. I'm about to buy her another car, you know, and it's like, and I wear Vans and fucking, I probably should have even thought about what I wore here. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, if I'm going to look nice, I'll look nice, but I just live life on my own terms. And I think that could have been really the opposite because of what happened. And, you know, in that movie, I think that's maybe the lesson is that, you know, you don't have to, the end of the book doesn't have to be the same as the start of the book.
For sure. Don't let nobody define you. You know, no matter what they do to you, you can always take back control of your narrative. So, but that was powerful. This movie is powerful. His story is powerful.
I appreciate it.
He just opened up the wounds and forced us to sit in them. You know, man, it's heavy. And I hope that whoever hear this that identifies with you can also feel like, you know, that they've been heard through you.
I appreciate that.
So, but yeah, y'all heard it here. Joe Reed, as his life relates to the movie Sleepers. Like, subscribe, share this story all over the world. You know, somebody needs to hear this right now. So I thank you. Go buy the book Prosaism.
Appreciate it.
Last of a dying seed. How can the fruit grow healthy if it's a rotten tree? They brainwashed me and tainted my perception young. It's hard to have vision when you blind, deaf, and dumb.
I should back up even a little bit further. Like, as an adult, like, I confronted, I found out about a guy that was like grooming young girls. And the proof was there. Like there wasn't I mean, you know, this dude might have had a good lawyer, he might have had family to take care of the situation, but in my eyes he was just a, you know, he was an abuser. And so like I confronted him, and I ended up almost catching like a case, like, you know, it probably could have even gone down the road of like a potential like manslaughter or attempted murder at this point. And of course, like the only way out of it was to like, you know, kind of rehash like what happened to me and how that triggered me.
The cope here, we normalize the abnormal. That's how we got dehumanized. Partner died before my eyes. That's how I got desensitized. Hurt people. I know you heard the cliche. Had to heal my wounds. I was ready for my release date. Our example was destructive. Last of a dying seed.